Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with a weekly garden tour. It's officially the first day of spring and I have a brand new iPhone 13 Pro, and this is the first video that I am making with my new device, and I think that the quality is going to be significantly better than what I was using prior. Well, I can't wait to show you around the garden. We're 1 week from that hard frost that we had, and plants are recovering pretty quickly, and there's a lot to show you. So let's take a stroll. First, I have to say, wow to cinematic mode on the video camera here. And you can see the tulips and the cabbages are looking great. I do not regret covering this last week. I don't know whether it really helped, but the fact that the tulips are blooming and the cabbages are just about ready to be harvested makes me really, really happy. You can also see the poppies. These are all self-sown poppies, are doing well. You see some cold damage. And then look here, there are a bunch of California poppies germinating. Overall, I'm just really pleased with how all of these beds have grown through the winter season. And I've been pulling out a few more plants from the shed. You can see some kind of stretched echeverias there. All the briars, those are blackberries, are starting to leaf out. You can see the phlox has grown a lot. It was just mowed like 3 weeks ago. And some more broccoli to transplant into the garden. 2 new trays started, and I just wanted to show you my latest floating flower arrangement that I did when I came home today. This is Jack's. This is October Affair. This is Happy Higo, and I believe this is Helen Beach, with a few double hellebores and some cute little violas that are actually just from that pot right there. I have a bunch of fun experiments to record for all of you that we'll be posting this week, so you have to be sure to stay tuned. I'm gonna aim to continue to have a new video every day, at least through the end of March. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I have had a new video every day this whole year. So I didn't make that a New Year's resolution, but I did want to sort of test myself to see if I had the ability or the dedication to video making. And so far, I have had a new video every day. I've gotten a little bit more organized about how I go about planning what I'm going to record and actually getting things edited and scheduled. So if you've wondered how I've had a video up every morning at 6 a.m., it's not because I'm awake doing it. But I really appreciate all of you tuning in and watching these videos. When I started really focusing on doing this 2 years ago, I was really intimidated and yeah, I felt really uncomfortable. And I am so grateful for all of you because you've made it where I actually really look forward to doing this. And particularly, I look forward to these garden tours. So let's get back to it. Honestly, the camera is so awesome, but truly this forsythia is this exuberant. It's so beautiful. This is Cumson Gold. It's actually a variegated leaf. And I've definitely had to rein it in because, like, you see how the branches kind of weep over. They'll root in and sucker. Like I see some over there rooted in, but look at that flower display. Oh gosh, I don't care if forsythias are common. I love them. Down through the north side, yeah, this poor lilac does not look great. I think I'm probably gonna cut like this whole thing down, and I might actually cut that other side down like to here and see if that gives the plant some energy to reflush. I don't have any flowers. Well, that's not true. There's a couple tiny flowers up here. This is my favorite variety excel, and I'm really sad to see it in decline. I think I let it get too dry, and it's planted here at the base of a Yoshino cryptomeria that I really don't need, that I'm not ambitious enough to take down. It's grown really well for 10 years, but now it's not looking so great. Over here, you can see the Jack's camellia starting to open. The flowers are still pretty damaged from last week's cold. These were in bud, but there are some that look like they will open without trouble. And more hellebores that I will pluck for floating arrangements. But I can't wait to show you the royal velvet. And I love this combo with the royal velvet and the Cercis chinensis alba that's just starting to bloom. So look at all of those beautiful flowers. Even though many are cold damaged, it's still so extraordinary, that dark, dark red. And then next to it over here, October Affair. And I actually saved one perfect flower to show you all. I was gonna pluck it for a floating arrangement. But look at that. It's got the perfect spiral. Such an extraordinary flower. Oh, I love it so much. Of course, I can't walk over here and not talk about Don Egoff, the most magnificent Cercis chinensis. And even with the cold damage, most of the flower buds are unscathed, and these are edible, y'all. You can like put these on salads. They kind of have like a nice sweet taste. And of course, one of the distinguishing factors with this variety, or with this species, is that it flowers up and down the trunk. So isn't that a sight to be seen? Oh, I love it. And I promise they are edible. Yeah, they have a nice flavor. I'll have to make a salad. Have a bunch of lettuce to harvest, and I'll make it extra pretty by adding some Cercis chinensis flowers. All right, as we make our way around front, you'll see this quince, which I think is cultivar Dragon's Blood, has recovered from last week. And here's that wildfire mix lettuce that's doing great. I will definitely be harvesting from this today. And you can see more bulbs coming up, some crocus, grape hyacinths. Behind that, more daffodils. It's all looking good. These daffodils out front are just about finished. I brought a lot in last week, as I showed you in my weekly garden tour, and made the house look really pretty. And of course, if you tuned in for my poppy thinning video, you've seen this bed. And I'm gonna spend some time this week out here on my hands and knees weeding out some of the unnecessary things like vetch and chickweed and veronica and other things that are kind of getting in the way. And I am gonna thin some poppies in here, although I think for the most part I'm gonna leave this bed alone. I'll show you again where my poppy thinning experiment's going to be. Now you can see the shrub border over there, lots of things starting to flush with new leaves. And across to the barley wave. It's looking good. It's really dry. I need to start using the sprinklers. It's windy today. I'm not really dressed appropriately in a sundress, but I couldn't help it. It's the first day of spring. And if I was still in Michigan, this temperature would definitely be sundress weather. I haven't yet done cutbacks in these containers, but that is on my to-do list this week. I think it's always good to let the plants have a little time after a cold snap, and then you can decide whether you want to cut the entire leaf off or just the part that got damaged. I'll make a video when I go to do these. I really wanted to show you all the barley wall. Look at how it's filled in. Oh, I'm so stoked about this. And I did fertilize this with Dr. Earth, the granular formulation, and I do have it hooked up to the automatic irrigation again. And that's important because it's growing really fast and I don't water often enough to keep up with its needs. But that's what's so great about this live wall is that it's automatic. And oh, look at it. It looks so good. Oh, I am so pleased with this. It's brought me a great deal of joy. And I can't believe how in a year, this bed that I renovated last year around this time, how the strawberries have completely filled in. Unfortunately, I think that this blueberry has died. And, you know, a longtime friend of mine who's since passed always said, never plant blueberries next to your house because the lime leaching from the mortar of the brick influences the pH negatively for your blueberries. And here, of course, there's the concrete mortar there and concrete right here. So that was not a good thought at all to put a blueberry there. It's no big deal that it's dead. I'm just going to cut it down. I don't want to disturb the strawberries that are growing at the base. And you notice the strawberries are flowering. So it's not going to be too long before we start having strawberries again. And I did these floating arrangements when I got home. It's just like my favorite thing to do, to walk around the garden and collect. And so there's some royal velvet, some white hellebores, and 2 different varieties of forsythia. Kind of the same thing here, just a different pattern. Such a pretty thing to see when I walk out my kitchen door. Now, I showed this in the poppy video, the poppy thinning video, but these are self-sown poppies, and look how great they are. And you can see they've kind of like segregated themselves so they have enough room. I'd really say this is sort of ideal placement. It's really hard to do that when you're physically sowing the seeds because the seeds are so small and it's almost impossible to not overplant them. But if you're aiming, you know, long term, that's kind of the orientation that I'd say aim for. Of course, in this bed, there's also more California poppies. I'm really pleased to have so many California poppies scattered around the garden this year. It's mostly because you guys asked so many questions about them that when I found seed, I bought like every variety that I could find. Just precisely what well-adjusted people do, right? No signs of the papyrus growing back yet, but this has been perennial. Oh, that's not true. There are signs. Look at that green. So this is the giant papyrus. Sometimes it's sold as King Tut. And it's been in here, I guess, probably 8 years now. It's overcrowded the lotus that was originally planted there. But I really love the papyrus. It grows to about 10 to 12 foot tall, and it's just so tropical and amazing. Well, Cubby's relieved because I have moved the Orbit Yard Enforcer to this side, and I adjusted it to nighttime only because we are getting sprayed all the time. It's really startling, and it's like, it's a lot of water, and the poor cats are getting wet all the time. So he hasn't been able to patrol like this side of the yard all week. Again, in here you can see blueberries already. You know, these ones are sort of just starting to flower, but they're also leafing out. And those are leeks that were planted a year ago. Leeks are kind of a long season. And I just watered all of this stuff. That these poppies in the soil cube bags are doing great. And I can't believe it. Self-sown castor beans are starting to germinate. We'll have to go to the other side and see if they're germinating in the ground, because there's a big difference in soil temperature in containers versus in ground. And I'm going to make a video all about that this week to better explain why I keep saying don't do your tomatoes yet. It's too early. It's all about soil temperature. I was really happy to see this cute little dwarf knockout rose that got damaged really severely back in January is all leafing back out and looks good again. So Pretty much all the damage from the cold snaps, all the plants are recovering. I don't think that I really lost any plants. Well, I see some vetch, so I do need to get in here and weed a bit. 'Cause it's better to catch this stuff now before it's in seed. But this is going to be a really beautiful display. This is like the whole purpose of my spring open garden, to show people what this sort of direct seeding can achieve. It's like it's just like the ultimate cottage garden, really. It's very British style with all these different flowers growing in and amongst one another. I wanted to show you these. The cattle fence poppies are doing great. I think I could actually take the cattle fence off. And guess what I'm seeing? Self-sown castor beans. So that must mean the soil is probably about 45 or 50 degrees. Castor beans for me, I don't want to call them invasive, but they're abundant. And I mean, I haven't sown seeds of castor beans in this garden for at least 8 years, but I will never not have them as a result of growing them even once. Here is that elephant garlic that I planted from Wegmans back in January, and it's growing really fast. I wasn't sure whether this would mature, and I still am not sure. So it'll be interesting to watch it this spring, see how it does. And the potatoes, which I had forgotten that I had planted potatoes along this edge. So I have potatoes and garlic, double barrier, are starting to grow back. They were really, they died to the ground last week when we got to 20 degrees, but it's nice to see they're starting to sprout again. And here is where I need to spend some time weeding and thinning, but this is where I'm gonna do the poppy thinning experiment. This peach is the middle, everything to the right I'm gonna leave alone. I mean, I'm gonna weed it, I'm gonna get rid of the bad plants, but I'm not gonna do anything to the poppies. Everything to the left, I'm gonna thin out, and we're just gonna see whether the thinning ends up being worth my while or not. I don't know, because honestly, the way I learned to do it, I didn't thin, and I've never questioned it, and that's not a good excuse. Just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean that it's the best way. So there's always an opportunity to learn something new, and that's why I love experimenting so much. So we come along here, see this peach that's growing out of my compost bin. I don't think it didn't set fruit last year either, but it would have, all the flowers would have been blasted from last week, but it's leafing out. And I always forget that I have this redbud here. This is Cercis canadensis, hearts of gold. So it has sort of chartreuse foliage. And trying to get a better view of those flowers. My drive back from Virginia was so pretty today. It was like the sides of the highway were like a Monet painting. But you see there's lots of bees up there gathering pollen or gathering nectar. So I'm glad I have one native redbud left. I originally planted like 12 and all of them got infested with ambrosia beetles and died. But so I'm happy I have one left. All right, this is sort of nerd alert. This is one of my favorite broadleaf evergreen trees called Neolitsia sericea. And I love this new growth. It almost looks like a flower. And it's velvet. It's so soft and furry. And, you know, it's just extraordinary. You see how it kind of shimmers. Definitely a zone 7 to 9. Not a great one for trying to zone bend in colder regions. But yeah, look at that new growth. Isn't that so cool? I love it. Oh, I love this plant so much. And while I'm back here, I should show you that big ginger that I planted. Doesn't look so hot. I don't know, it might come back. I don't see any new growth yet, but I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna leave it. If it doesn't come back, that's okay. I saved a big piece and it's up on my brick patio now. Ugh, look at this doggone lamium. It's covered in mildew. not an area that I've been actively managing, but we have big plans. We're gonna get rid of all of this invasive Ligustrum sinensis, also known as privet. We're gonna clear all this out. I'm gonna hopefully transplant that camellia. Get rid of those ligustrums. That's a hybrid ligustrum called Vicarii, which is kind of an interesting plant in the sense that it has this bright chartreuse leaf and holds on to its old foliage that gets black, but I just don't want any ligustrums on this property, period. And this is gonna become a driveway. Well, not a driveway, but an area to be able to drive cars between the two properties. So this is definitely finally 11 years of on this property. I'm finally going to deal with this bed. This is actually where I originally planted things from my other garden when I moved here after my catastrophic house flood in 2010. And I just plopped plants in thinking that I would get back to them and transplant, and I never did. And so this part of the garden has always been a huge mess because it wasn't planned, it wasn't drawn, it was just like a huge afterthought. But in saying that, this isn't how you should plant, but I kind of like that, like this Coralopsis. This is one called, is it Spring Beauty? Golden Beauty? I'll put a link so you can learn more about this, and I'll put the cultivar. But I love this flower. I just think they're like the sweetest thing. And then at the overstory of that is Hamamelis Arnold Promise, which is still smelling so good, and just one of my all-time favorite witch hazels. I do plan to collect more North American native witch hazels to plant on the next door property. So I'm really excited about exploring all these new plants that I don't have a lot of experience with. And I want to make the most of that half acre over there by not having a lot of repeated plant material between the two properties. And a quick pan in the woodland. The Happy Higo is looking happy. Lots of great big flowers. The trilliums are about to open. Look at that. The Edgeworthia is, I mean, it's like, you know, you enjoy them all winter and then they're just done. And now they're starting to leaf out. You see the flower buds just kind of fall apart, and you can see the leaves have initiated. And over here on Pepifera, you know, I like growing both, but there's really no question. Chrysanthemum is more showy. There's no denying that. And I wanted to show you one of my favorite camellias that hopefully is going to open fully. This is Roma resorta, the camellia that made me obsessed with old varieties. This is a variety from Italy, introduced in 1866. And it's got this great kind of speckled flower, formal double. So hopefully in the coming days, it won't show too much frost damage and I'll get to enjoy that bloom. And over here by the garage and greenhouse, everything's growing well, nothing too showy or notable. But camellia in that greenhouse I need to get planted. I'm gonna be posting a video about planting onions, but I wanted to show you, these are onions that I planted from little onion sets a year ago. So with onions, they take a lot longer. It's a lot more time commitment than garlic. It's worth growing, but just be warned. But you can look for that video this week. And all the pots here at the fire pit look great. We are making some of the final plans so I can start promoting our grain experiences down at Johnson Nursery that will take place in June. You see these grains look great. They're probably needing water. I should water over here. The pots of barley. It looks like kitty cats have been sitting in here Indeed, look at that. And I know which one, my little babe, my sweet little kitten. And I do have some aphids on here still, so I will also post a video about how to make your own insecticidal soap. It's really simple. And I can't believe it, but look at, oh, of course there's vetch, good Lord. But look, the first barley flower heads are starting to appear. Oh, that is exciting. Well, and as you can see here, my favorite blueberry, powder blue, is starting to really get into its flowering mode now. Fingers crossed we won't have any more cold weather. And I hope you've enjoyed today's garden tour. I will be in South Carolina next weekend in Edgefield. So if you are in that general vicinity, I hope you'll come out and plan to see me on Saturday. I have a really fun presentation prepared, and I'll be selling books and seeds. Remember, I do seed sales at all of these in-person events. No mail orders. You actually have to come to an event to be able to indulge in some of my random seed collections, which include rice, sesame, sorghum, peanuts, yeah, basically anything that I have excess of, I've been packaging up and offering them to people at live and in-person events. Well, I wish you all the best. Happy first day of spring, everybody. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I look forward to sharing another update next week.